Alrighty folks, so this is video 2 for week 8, which covered the week 8 homework and also the chapter 5 quiz. We're on to the quiz, and we were looking at problem number 2 here. And what we were doing is we needed to take these ratios and rewrite them as a fraction in simplest form. Alright, so we had already started working on this first one here, 1 2/3 to 8 1/3. So 1 2/3 to 8 1/3. So the first thing that we did is we just took this ratio, which used the word to, T-O, to separate the two numbers, and we went ahead and wrote it as a fraction, right? You can use this horizontal fraction bar or division bar to write the ratio, 1 2/3 to 8 1/3. So the next thing that we did is this ratio contained two mixed numbers. And we want to rewrite those mixed numbers as fractions. So 1 2/3 is the same thing as 5/3, and we got that by taking the denominator 3 times 1, which is 3, and then adding 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. And then you keep that denominator you started with, 5/3. Same thing down here in the denominator. This mixed number 8 1/3 is the same thing as 25/3, and we get that by taking 3 times 8, which is 24, plus 1, which is 25, all over the denominator we started with, which is 3. So now we want to take 5/3 to 25/3, and we need to go ahead and actually divide, right? Use this division bar here to think as 5/3 divided by 25/3. 5/3 divided by 25 all over 3. So whenever you're dividing by a fraction, that's the same thing as multiplying by that fraction's reciprocal. So 5/3 divided by 25/3 is the same thing as 5/3 times 3/25. So notice that we are just multiplying by this fraction's reciprocal. We just want to flip it over. All right. And now the last thing we want to do is just go ahead and multiply and reduce these fractions. So one thing that's really nice about multiplying fractions, guys, is that you can do something that is known as cross-canceling. All right, you can look diagonally anytime you multiply fractions, and if there are common factors, you can cross them out. So in other words, we can cross out these 3's because they both contain a factor of 3, and when you factor out that factor of 3, we're just left with 1. Let's look at this other diagonal. All right, notice that this diagonal contains the numbers 5 and 25. Both of these contain common factors of 5. So let's factor that 5 out. So canceling a factor of 5 out of 5, you're just left with 1. And canceling a factor of 5 out of 25, we would be left with 5. And now we go ahead and multiply what we have left. So we have 1 times 1 in our numerators. 1 times 1 is just 1 all over. 1 times 5 in our denominators. And 1 times 5 is just 5. So 1/5 should be our answer here. And we see that is what we get. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for our next problem. So we're taking this ratio and we want to rewrite it as a fraction in simplest form. So 6 1/4 to 1 1/4. So we have 6 1/4 to 1 1/4. Alright, so remember our instructions are to rewrite this ratio as a fraction in simplest form. So first things first, let's go ahead and rewrite it as a fraction. 6 1/4 to 1 1/4. Alright, so we have successfully rewritten this ratio as a fraction. Let's now go ahead and reduce this fraction and put it into its simplest form. So what we want to do first is we want to rewrite both of these fractions or both of these mixed numbers in the numerator and the denominator as just fractions instead of mixed numbers. So let's go ahead and do that here. our denominator of 4 times 6, that's 24. 24 plus 1 is 25 all over 4. All right, so 6 1/4 is the same thing as 25 all over 4. And that is all over 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5 all over 4. All right, so what we did there, guys, is we just took these mixed numbers, 6 1/4 and 1 1/4, and we just rewrote them as fractions, 25 all over 4 and 5 over 4. Now, we're dividing two fractions, so let's go ahead and let's perform that division and see what number we get when we get done. So 25 all over 4 divided by 5 over 4. All right. So remember, guys, that dividing a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So this is the same thing as 25 all over 4 times 4 over 5. All right, and keeping in mind that anytime we are multiplying fractions, we can cross-cancel common factors. So look on your diagonals and look for common factors. So on this diagonal we have a 4 and a 4. Both of those numbers contain a factor of 4. When we factor out the factor of 4, all we're left with is 1. And now let's look on this other diagonal. We have the numbers 25 and 5, similar to last time. Those both contain a factor of 5. Let's factor out the factor of 5. 5 becomes a 1. Factoring 5 out of 25, you are left with 5. So now we just need to go ahead and multiply these values that we have left. So numerators first. 5 times 1 is 5. All over 1 times 1 is 1. So 5 over 1 should be your answer as a fraction in simplest form, and we see that that is what we get. All right, so we are on to problem number 8 next. Let's take a look at it. So it says to solve the problem, write and then solve a proportion. The proper dosage of a certain medication for a 24-pound child is shown. At this rate, what would be the dosage for a 36-pound child? All right, so first off, find the question that we have here. So it says, what would be the dosage for a 36-pound child? So we want to know how much medicine are we going to give a 36-pound child, given that we know that we would give a 24-pound child the amount shown, which looks to be 3/4 of an ounce. All right, so let's take a look here first at the ratios that we are looking at here. So what we are looking at is weight to medication. Keep it simple, I'm just going to write Rx. Right? So we're saying based on this child's weight, how much medicine do we need to give the child? All right. Well, looking back at our problem, we know that a 24-pound child is going to get 3/4 of an ounce of medicine. All right. So now we can use this ratio to set up a proportion, right? We can set this ratio equal to another ratio using this same formula, weight to medication, to figure out a different amount of medication for a child that weighs a different amount, right? We want to know what's the dosage for a 36-pound child. So if my child weighs 36 pounds, then how many ounces of medicine am I going to give him or her? So X here, that's our variable. All right. So now we just need to go ahead and solve this proportion. And we do this by first, remember, cross multiplying. To solve a proportion, you want to cross multiply. So take 24 times X, and that gives us 24X is equal to, and now we will multiply on the other diagonal as well, 3/4 times 36. Let's use our calculator. So we want to take 3/4, which is 0.75, and we want to multiply that by 36. Times 36 is 27. All right. So the last thing we need to do then is just go ahead and solve for X, and we would do that by dividing by 24. Notice that the X is connected to 24 through multiplication. So to undo this multiplication, we would divide by 24. And whatever you do to one side, you would have to do to the other in order to maintain your equivalence. So our 24's cancel on the left-hand side. All we're left with on the left-hand side is X equals, and we have 27 divided by 24. All right, so 27 divided by 24, you can factor a 3 out of both of these. So 27, take a 3 out of that, you're left with 9 all over 24. Take a 3 out of that, and you would have 8. And now remember our units here. I didn't really write those out. I should have. So we have pounds for the weight and ounces for the medication. Right, these are in pounds, and this is in ounces. All right, and we just solved for an amount of medication, so that would be 9/8 ounces. All right, so 9/8 should be our answer there. And we got 2 minutes. One more problem was problem number 9. Let's see if we can't get through that. Looks like it's going to be a two-parter. We might just be able to do one part. All right, so it says use 2 unit conversion factors to perform the conversion. Give the exact answer and a decimal approximation rounded to the nearest hundredth when necessary. 198 yards to miles. Okay, so let's hopefully get this set up here. 198 yards to miles. So we have 198 yards, and they want us to get to miles. All right, so I was taught to do this using something called the fence method. So I'm going to show you guys this, and it's really just doing multiple conversions at once. So what you want to do is you want to set up your fence here. All right, and I know that I want to go from yards to miles. Well, let's first go from yards to feet. So notice that yards is on the top of the fence right now. So you're going to have to put yards in the bottom of the fence in order for these yards here to cancel each other out. And we're going from yards to feet. Well, what do we know is true about yards and feet? Well, I know that in 1 yard there are 3 feet. And now we can move on to our next section of the fence. Notice that we have feet up here, and we eventually want to get to miles, so I'm going to put feet down here in order to cancel them out. And we'll put miles up here. All right, so we're going to cancel out feet, and what we'll be left with is miles. So we'll have gone from yards to feet to miles. So what do I know about feet and miles? Well, I know that there are 5,280, 5280 feet in 1 mile. So now you just want to multiply straight across on the top of the fence and on the bottom of the fence, and we'll see what we have left here. So we have 198 times 3. I'm not going to be able to finish this. So that is 594, and that would be all over 5,280.